Right, we're back. Obviously, the Best Damn League show returns again. We've got the first matches in the LEC Group Stage done, the first BO3s. We've even, due to how the format works, qualified the first two teams. The upper bracket final is known. It will be G2 against XL. Yes, the second part of that, you didn't go through a time machine or something there to the future. Actually, XL is going to be top three no matter what. And there'll be some conditions for that later that I'll get to, because actually, if people don't know, that does very much change the whole situation of vitality status and championship finals and all the rest of it. All just. By the way, obviously, yes, in this episode, even though he doesn't play in the LEC anymore, just like you fans on YouTube, Reddit, and Twitter, we will continue to reference Reckless. And in doing so, you won't be able to help yourself from just saying stupid things, replying, giving free engagement. Now, here's the funny thing, Dom. I was wrong. I've got to actually apologize to the Reckless fans, because I thought the problem with you guys
Reckless get into this intro. Okay.
Get ready. I thought because you guys just love Reckless so much, it's like you just don't understand the other ADCs. But I'm wrong. You definitely get upset. Right. So, okay, here's the thing, guys. When I explain the cool smoking experience you can get running a freeze pipe setup, I'm making no reference at all to a fictional Jamaican bobsleigh team, though the performance will be sweeter than any great candy. You see, with the freeze pipe, you can take the annoyance and irritation out of smoking cannabis. Whether you like to use a bong, bubbler, oil, or dab rig, freeze pipe has you covered. After purchasing with the code LFN for 10% off, simply put the chamber into the freezer for how long? That's right, an hour, if you've been listening to these episodes in the past. Don't worry, though. The chamber is made of glycerin and is food safe. And the experience will have you metaphorically glistening and viewing outer space. You don't have to worry. You don't have to spin around 3 times to enjoy some crispy, cool air and impress your friends. Reference to a 1080 there. So however you like to consume your cannabis, give some thought to the freeze pipe. 10% off with thefreezepipe.com. Buy one for a friend or family and save bucks for your uncle. It's radical, man. And they support our grind. There you go. Eat your heart out, everyone who does these in esports. You'll never fuck with me. Understand that. You never fuck with me. Never fuck with me in a million. No, here's the thing, Dom. There's a whole bunch of angles on this. The reason why I brought up the Reckless angles, I actually saw that clip where you were just on like hate viewing the Reddit Fnatic subreddit. And dude, this is the thing about how fans project. They always tell you that you do what they do religiously. So the joke is, even though Reckless doesn't play for Fnatic, remember what every Reckless fan tells you, Dom, stop mentioning him or you're just like obsessed. So logically, they'd have no reason to reference Reckless in a match now about Fnatic. He doesn't play for Fnatic, right? In fact, the guy who plays for Fnatic is way better. That comment I saw that you found is just like, dude, they're on another level. They're actually on another level. The one where they just
gaslight you.
This is a level of corp I have never even seen achieved since like prime TSM at Worlds. It's when they said that the reason why Fnatic lost is because they were putting Noah on an island by himself. Are you ready? Like Reckless. Now, just see what that was. 1, they didn't do that at all. 2, you'll find out soon, he puts himself on the island. And then 3, there's no universe where the problem in the past splits was everyone else except Reckless. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you guys inserted that. I just thought it was an amazing comment, dude. Like, the genius of really nutter fan comments is they're not actually that predictable. I can't know what angle they're going to take because the level of copium is just going to be so fucking bonkers. Like, that's almost like the level of creativity. I can almost admire it, you know.
I really like it because that's the first step in like gaslighting somebody, right? Like they start by saying like, oh, well, Noah's just put on an island again. And then like in 5 years time, when everything's muddied, it's like, you know, Reckless and Noah were pretty much just as good as each other. I mean, they were the same exact player. It was just that the way the team played at that time was just putting them both on an island. Like it's like Noah was borderline MVP. Like Reckless was borderline MVP. Then they'll be able to spin it all back. I really respect that level of just manipulation. It's something that you don't get to see that often for teams. Like a lot of teams will just flame the people that are playing bad, but some fan bases are specific. So that was some content from Fnatic subreddit. I really liked how like not only did that happen, but then obviously Humanoid and Razor, who've been playing pretty well the entire summer split, they just started getting strays. It's like, yep, and once again Razor and Humanoid rear their heads and it's their fault. Like we knew this was coming. Like and then they condescend to you and everything. So I absolutely love going Fnatic subreddit. It's one of my favorite pieces of content.
Right, obviously, as I've done on some of the past episodes, I usually do like to save a little spicy detail just for people every now and then. And since they're going to bring up Reckless Dom and never stop talking about it, even when I had no plans to on this episode, I would have just talked about Noah, who to me was the MVP of the split before. And yeah, his games weren't as impressive in the playoffs. Maybe I could have made shades of illusions how Reckless played because he played a little bit passive, but whatever. That's neither here nor there. I have got a little Reckless gem for you that was relevant to this year. So think earlier back in the year, guys. Remember when, as absolute peon pleb cretins who don't understand how narratives work, just like the year before, a couple of years earlier when that upset couldn't play at Worlds and that Bean guy played, and you were like, he's actually great, I think he should be the LEC starter, and then every LEC GM and coach was like, no thank you, and basically like, mate, it's done. Like, the joke is you'll never see that guy in the LEC. Same thing, because Hillersang had that thing where they were arriving late and they played that Rux guy. You were all like, hey, Rux was half decent. I want him as the starter. That's right. Listen, as bad as Hillersang ever was, you chose Rux as the primary starter of Fnatic over Hillersang. And you were loving that in the first split. But remember, after like 1.5 LEC games, he was already busted and completely washed and never made it, right? This is a detail that when you know, because here's the thing, Dom, I have at this point in time, like the metaphor is there's a dam that is me on these talk shows. And I'm just letting through the odd Reckless story. But I'll just give you a little tease, Dom. The dam's going to completely break real soon. But okay, let's not get too excited.
Okay.
But I'll give you another one just coming out of the sluice, just coming out of the pipe. Here's one for you. You know that marvelous Reckless guy presents himself as a leader, a great teammate, always tries to like work with his friend. Here's what this guy's like. So you know the Rocks guy, he's coming into Fnatic, a lot of pressure on you if you're playing Fnatic, especially if you're filling Hillersang's shoes. The guy was a champion, went to world semis, finals even, right? Here's the detail I heard. I heard Reckless was so stupid, he talked shit about Rux to someone who, let's just say, because Rux is from Portugal, is either Portuguese or Spanish, another player, and didn't know that player's just friends with Rux and just went and told him, like, yeah, Reckless said all this stuff about you. So you can imagine his confidence was fucking shot completely. I wonder why they played like they didn't even know each other in those games, ran it down completely, and he was fired from his job, because that's the thing. Until recently, it's always Reckless's support or they're the teammate that gets fired, until he himself got fired and benched. But anyway, that's just a little gem for you, just a little one I'd show in there, because obviously the way it's presented publicly, Dom, you would assume like Reckless is a veteran, he's had all these teams. You should understand if you're a veteran, you're bringing a player in, better take the pressure off him. Why are you talking shit about a guy behind the scenes? Why a guy in his rookie split? Like, that's just egregious, mate.
I mean, they played 9 games together, right? Like, that was it. So,
wild,
yeah, I mean, especially because I think that they also started pretty late, so they did not play together that much. But you could tell that neither of them was comfortable, and I think the biggest problem with that bot lane is that somebody has to take the L, and neither of them wanted to take the L. I think in that situation, if you're actually a top tier AD carry, you just go the Han Sama route. You say, fuck it. Like, this guy can play engage supports. We're playing engage supports. We're doing the Mickey X type of laning where we're just playing engage supports. We're playing Kai'Sa. We're playing Kalista. We're playing like Draven. We will just Samira. We're just going to find something aggressive. Look, my favorite team is fucking OMG. They do that shit to this day. Like, they are finding just non-stop Tristana bot lane angles. They're like, yeah, we just play Tristana. Like, we think it's an OP champion. We'll play it with engage, and we're just going to play to kill the lane. Even when everyone is playing Milio and Yuumi and all this shit, they find ways to be aggressive, and neither of them wanted to do that. So it was really tough to watch. I'm happy that that's gone now.
As we say, I'll tie it back to what I said earlier. To me, this team has nothing to do with the one that was in the past with Reckless and the other players. Like, this team's a totally different breath of fresh air. I even think the most hilarious side comment I saw was that dumbass take where they went like, so Fnatic finishes 9th in a split and people really thought they were going to go further. Yeah, the player they added is the best player on the team, you fucking cretin. Probably like the top 3 player in the LEC now. So let's go to the actual team now then, Dom. What do you think happened? Like, this was mega shocking. It's not just like the fact they lost. The way they lost was so underwhelming.
So I guess the inside info that I had that isn't really inside anymore because it was brought up on one of my streams was that the scrims are going like absolutely terrible. So something happened where their practice was really good. The practice became really bad, and now the team is just like losing confidence in one another. So I think that's like the mental side of what's going on, because you could tell that they just looked like so willing to lose to SK. Like, there wasn't any grit, there wasn't a back and forth. It was like SK started winning the game, they're like, sure, take it, like, we'll just go lower bracket. And yeah, I mean, as a result, when the vibes are different, everyone's playing worse individually. Like, Ascardin, I think, was one of the best top laners in LEC over the 9 games, right? Like, he was just a beast. He was always ahead. Like, he's always ahead. He's always relevant in team fights. He was just always doing his job. I mean, the team was beating everyone because they were pretty much ahead everywhere early game. And now when you see Oscarinin getting his head caved in by Irrelevant, and then bot lane's no longer getting leads, I think it's tough. And then the other thing I would say about where it's going wrong is I think that the team in general got hit by the meta. I think the meta changes on 13-13. A lot of the champions that Trimby was good at, like Milio, Yuumi, are nowhere close to as strong. And that was always the advantage that I perceived Trimby having over other supports in Europe. It seemed like when we get into engage metas, it's always going to be like Mickey X and Hilly that are just the best. But Trimby was better than those guys at enchanters most of the time. And yeah, those champions are just no longer in the meta. So now you're having to play things like Rel bot lane. It seems like Razork also is pretty slow to pick up champions. I think it's one of the weaknesses of Razork. So Rel is not something that they're like playing and flexing, and it looks really good for them. We didn't see any Ivern. Like, Ivern's getting banned, but we don't know if they actually are, capable of playing it. And then we saw weird things happen. Like Fnatic, I believe in game 2, I'm just gonna check this, but I'm pretty sure in game 2, Fnatic was banning LeBlanc on blue side, which is like, I don't know how they got from.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know how they got from being the first team to play Static Shiv LeBlanc to like being like, no, we have to ban the LeBlanc from ourselves. I mean, that was something that looked mega OP when they played it. And it's not that much different on 13-13 than it was on 13-12. Like, pretty much the only difference is you don't take Demolish, and instead you take Dematerializer, because you want to be able to one-shot the wave, so you have to use your Dematerializer on the wave in order for your Static Shift to one-shot, whereas before Static Shift was so overtuned, you would just one-shot anyway. Outside of that, I mean, it feels like they should just be playing these champions, so I'm not sure what happened in their practice where they lost confidence in certain picks, but I think that there needs to be some level of confidence on stage where even if, like, in scrims, because you got to understand also Fnatic is scrimming top tier teams. They're probably scrimming G2 all the time, right? Like, because those are the teams that look the best, and they're in opposite groups, right? So it'd make logical sense for Fnatic to scrim against G2 a lot. Don't take too much away from those scrims. If you do lose to a top tier team, you don't have to be like, oh, well, now we can't play LeBlanc even versus the shit team. Like, if you're playing versus SK, you should just not react to the scrim so much and keep the things in your draft and like play a game on stage and see how it looks. I think that they need to relax and stop like tailoring their plan purely off scrims.
Oh, absolutely. The other thing as well is, I mean, you pointed out the players that were playing well. Like, Noah was playing mega. Obviously, Oscar, and then I think has leveled up way more from his first split. But I have to say, everyone loves his man. I can't believe how much this guy is fucking sucked for a year and a half, and he just gets a pass every time. Humanoid was a fucking bomb in this series. It was a fucking bomb. And by the way, he hasn't always been bad this split. Like, I remember the game they lost to SK where he actually had like a pretty clean like Xerath game. He's looking fucking good. Dude, he was absolutely whacking this season. Stop that shit that you all do with Armut. Like, the thing about him is he just doesn't like feel like the game that much. So, like, sometimes he's just not engaged. This is the time. Remember, guys, they don't get to go to Worlds unless they come something like fucking third or something. Yeah, they have to come in the top 3 just to get into the championship thing. Like, this is literally what you are paying this guy an enormous salary for. So that's why I told you, like, I already think it's funny to be like, I can fuck around and party and then I like try when I want if you're fucking Soaz and you can just first pick anything and win on it in playoffs. I think it's funny to be like, wonder, like, it's something I heard about. I'm actually better if I don't scrim. Like, I'm a guy who just thinks conceptually about my champion picks, and essentially it burns me out if I scrim and solo queue too much, and I just play the scrims, then we win in the play. That's cool if you win.
Also,
if you don't win, it's fucking whack.
The storyline of Wonder was also like mega overhyped. Like, he did play like a lot of solo queue at times. Like during spring split, I still heard that shit. He was literally 1300 LP. Like that's like top 20 on the ladder. Like, what do you want from this fucking guy? So I think that was one of the things in the community. Like, there was a point where he wasn't playing that much, and then when things went south, or like when he felt like he needed to up his performance, he would play a lot of solo queue. He was somebody who would grind. Even when I would do those Worlds tracking the pros streams, like the Worlds bootcamp streams, he would put in like 200 games like everyone else. Like, it wasn't like he just wasn't playing at all. So that narrative definitely was like way too far.
And I can just tell you, like I just referenced, I actually heard that's part of why that was one of his worst splits ever. Because people say, apparently in G2 at the time, Dom, they just actually made like a rule, like everyone had to play like X, I think it was like 5 solo queue games a day or something, right? And no joke, Wonder basically, like, it just made his game worse. Like, he is a guy where apparently that just fucks them. I'm not joking, by the way. That's not like a meme. Apparently, he really would just like think or like watch a VOD on, and then think through like a matchup, like, that's how I might play it, you know? And he was more like a theory guy. Now, as you say, if you go to Worlds, by the way, when everything's on the table, you've actually got a good team. Yeah, you're going to go fucking ham. His point was, and I think everyone's learned this, all the veterans, is yeah, you don't burn yourself out constantly throughout the split. The problem I have with this is, like I say, this is the last chance saloon for Humanoid.
Yep.
Like after this, it's just over. And if it's over, guys, what a fucking whack, like 2 years in general in context, but especially the last year and a half. Just fucking whack, boys. Like, this is just pathetic.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like they don't know what to play. The Azir picks from Humanoid, I think it was really funny because I have a bunch of people that played with Humanoid in call with me, right? So I have Upset, right. I have Wonder, and I have Yamato. And the one thing they were saying after game one, because game one went really poorly and Humanoid was on Azir, and Yamato said after this Azir game, he won't play Azir the rest of the playoffs. Like, if I know anything about Humanoid, and then he just goes back and he plays Azir the next game, and it was like, what the fuck? Like, shit. Yeah, and then he just like also ran it down. So it's like, I don't know what his mindset is within the team. People are really confused about his mindset because normally he's the guy who is going to try something, and if it doesn't go well and he doesn't feel like he has agency in the game, which is the main thing apparently for him, he wants to feel like his champion is like important in the game. His champion can do things within the game. If that goes south, he normally will try to pivot to something that gives him more agency. And in this game number 2, man, like, it did not look like he was very happy playing the Azir. I mean, playing Azir into Akali, it can work in lane, but I feel like that is like one of the best situations possible for SK. When SK has Certus on Akali into an Azir matchup, he seems like he's always mega comfortable in that situation. So I don't know. I thought it was interesting to see him go back to the Azir, because Azir is a different champion than it was before. I think before, Humanoid was so comfortable blind picking Azir because Azir was the lane bully. Like, you had power in your Q, you would poke somebody out. Now there's more power in your W, so you're kind of more like a scaling mage. Like, you can still push the lane, but you don't have the ability to like shit on your opponent, which is something that I feel like Humanoid really wants to do in games.
What about then the Noah angle? Because as I say, for me, he genuinely did look like an amazing rookie. Like, obviously, that he hasn't yet played the BO3s, which he now has. It did look like he played a bit baity, right? It did look like he sort of knew something was wrong.
I mean, I went back and I looked at his games, and I feel like a lot of the times, I mean, he's not in the same situations he was in before. He doesn't have the option of like winning these lanes super hard. Like, he's first picking Kai'Sa, enemy team is answering with Xayah or Khan. And then if you look at like how Trimby's playing the map, what the team is trying to do, like, they're giving bot lane pressure in order to do Herald. They're just putting Noah in a bad situation. Like, and he's not able to really do much. It's just like Reckless. It's just like what they did to Reckless. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, he's just Reckless 2.0.
You're not wrong. In some senses, Reckless demanding to play only certain champions, then getting completely countered in the draft, losing the game and barely doing anything. Actually, not too far off. Basically, when he plays, here's the real line for you guys. When Noah plays badly, I understand the Reckless comparisons. When he plays well, I don't get it at all. Why are you talking about some guy from 2018? It's fucking irrelevant now. You know. Anyway,
yep.
Let's the obvious angle here is we'll just do the SK one now. Like, obviously SK then went and played against XL. It was an all right series, but like, the thing I'm really shocked by in this is it's like, dude, can SK rather ever play like 3 good games in a row? Is that even allowed? Like, it feels like if they ever have a good game, I'm the guy where, because I'm not super in on this team, I'm just like, everyone, whoa, calm it down, guys. Let's just give them another chance. Yeah, that's the SK I know. Like, dude, this team just can't win. They can't win, mate. Like, you have to actually play bad like Fnatic did for this team to win. Like, I still don't believe in them, even though like they're like outside chance maybe to sneak in playoffs. Who the fuck knows? Right? Probably not, but we'll see. Like, this is why I have no stock in this team at all. I can't even give them too crazy props for this SK season. Look, I still think the irrelevant guys like maybe a little bit underrated. Seems like a pretty good player all in all, but where else am I supposed to get hyped? You know what I mean?
I mean, Certus on his champions, I think, I think he's pretty good if he gets champions that
a bit limited to his pool, right?
I mean, he's definitely limited. Like, you don't want to see Certus Azir in a game. Like, if Certus is playing Azir, I'm not big on it. I know, like, Gilius has played with him before. He's really big on the Certus Syndra. I don't like the Certus Syndra. I just want to see him play like Akali anytime that there's a potential angle for it. So if they draft like an Azir, I want to see an Akali every time there's a potential angle for it. Silas, I think his Tristana is like better than average. I mean, it looked like he was doing a lot in game number 1 versus XL. Those are the champions I want to see him play. I think that he's good on the champions that he plays well, and then he's like very mediocre on, you know, standard picks. So when I watch SK, I feel like there's just a formula they need to achieve in the game in order to win. One of the conditions is that they need their bot lane to have agency. So I want to see Exakick on something that can carry a game. So if that is like Xayah with Rakan, sure. If that's Kai'Sa, sure. I don't really like when they play Ziggs. I'm not huge on him not being like a late game carry threat. Marcoon has to be on something that has the ability to make plays. He's not good at like AFK jungling and going for like one engage every 3 minutes. He wants to be able to just completely run the entire game, just gank and gank and gank and find angles and all that stuff. So meta is pretty good for him right now. I would say that like all the champions that are meta in jungle fall into that bucket. So that's okay. And then I think Irrelevant, he's grown on me a little bit based off like what he showed in this last series versus Fnatic. The thing that he can now play Gwen, if he can add Gwen to the pool and he can play Jackson Gwen as carry champions, like those are legitimate carry champions. Yeah. Then you have Renekton, which everyone is like playing, it's just considered strong. And if he can also then play his tanks on top, I feel like that's really good development for a player. Like he went from being weak side only, having to play tanks every single game last year, to now being able to add in a Gwen, which is really good as like a tank counter, and it could be like a mega R5. You slam that shit last pick of the draft into like a lot of tanks, a lot of melee champions. It can be a mega OP pick. Also has this Jax, and if he's now able to play like Renekton well and have pressure in those games, like plays Gnar as well, like I think his pool is actually rounding out to not just be like the weak side top laner. Like he could also be just somebody who could get leads and be mega relevant in the game. Like maybe he doesn't get pressure in his lane, but I think one of the connotations of weak side is that you're just like sitting under your turret and you're just like kind of losing lane, but you're losing lane gracefully. Like he can play things where he's not getting necessarily attention from Marcoon, even though he did get some in the series, but he's able to actually win the lane 1v1 and be relevant later on in the game, which is something that we see a lot out of, for example, like Bin. Bin doesn't necessarily need ganks. Like he'll play without pressure, which would be technically weak side, but he'll just be smashing his fucking lane so hard that you're like, okay, like sure. I mean, I guess it's weak side Jax, but when you're that ahead, you don't actually need help. So I think that Irrelevant has actually shown me a lot of progress. I like seeing that he's not just, I'm going to be the weak side guy forever. I'm just going to pick tanks forever. He's actually trying to improve and, add layers to his game and make himself, relevant. I mean, the fucking irony of his name, like,
yeah, sure.
Yeah, whatever. I'm not trying to do this. Make himself relevant within the games. I have to preface it every single time I get there. Sure. Make himself relevant within the games. That's what I wanted to say.
That's the thing. Even though, like I said, you have cursed yourself with that name, in some ways that shows he is actually good when the name no longer applies. When actually now the joke is it's become ironic, hasn't it? So I would just say what you're describing here, Dom, it's where people have lost this terminology. It used to exist, but people don't use it anymore because they just say weak side, strong side. And as you say, they assume weak side means sit under the tower. Same as if you ever say someone's a mage mid laner and they're a little bit defensive or passive, they assume that means they sit under the tower and they don't ever farm the whip, which is why I always said for my favourite player, Froggen, it never applied. He contested every fucking creep, you idiot. It's just he only cared about the creeps, not the kills. That's a different style of player. What I would say for what you're talking about, Dom, because it's actually happened quite a lot, Alfari was like this, is they are a carry, but they're a low econ carry. They just don't need resources. They just don't need any like extra jungle attention. But you just put them on their champions, they can even play the carry champions. And the idea is they'll still win the lane. They'll still get the odd kill here and there. Just they don't need any attention. The reason why, this is why I've never thought that take on Alfari ever worked. Look, I agree he wasn't as good outside a lane, but the idea he like couldn't play with like dominant ADCs. Of course he could. Because the premise is
a GP player.
Player can be mega for a dominant ADC. Because as you're saying, you still potentially attract the other fucking jungler because you're just winning lane still. That actually free. It's essentially a pressure release valve for your bot lane.
Yeah, it's really nice to play with. I mean, that's one thing that I see out of Irrelevant. It's like junglers would love to play with this type of player. Sure. Like if he has the ability to play all the champions, and he can also like play with pressure, he can play without pressure. He's smart about the wave, which is something that we still see Adam making mistakes with his wave, like even to this day. Even in the series versus G2, you're still seeing wave issues from Adam, right? It seems like Irrelevant doesn't have those issues, and a lot of people would much rather play without the stress of playing with like somebody like Adam top lane, where it's like, all right, bro, like if he's gonna take the fight, if I'm not there at that moment, like he's not waiting 5 seconds for me, he's gonna take it 1v2, and if he wins it, we win the game, and if he loses it, then I guess it's my fault. Like most people don't want to play with that type of player. So I think that he's like a jungler's dream if he's able to now like incorporate Gwen. And yeah, I mean, I think he's been playing well. I thought he played well in the XL series and well in the Fnatic series.
So if we talk a bit about XL, the thing for me is this. Listen, look, don't worry. I will have a thing where we'll tie this all together later, because I saw you did that clip about like why LEC sucks. I've got some theories myself, but we'll go to it later. Right? Spoiler, XL is actually like the canary in the coal mine on why LEC sucks. Because even when they win this series, and they've actually won the fucking group, Tom, a group that I didn't have them winning on paper. I didn't have them even having a chance. The idea they've won this group, I should have to now say they're really good. Now, yes, in the pure direct context of like LEC, they have to be one of the better teams, of course. They have to be, like they are, top 3, top 4 team. If I've looked how they played, I can't argue against it. But that actually does show me how much LEC sucks, because even after this series, right, basically every player played well on XL. Like there's nothing to complain about. But mate, they just don't seem like an elite squad, if you know what I mean. Like I'm not putting them anywhere close to G2. Like, I don't think they have a chance in that series. Like essentially for me, the thing I'm impressed about with XL is just the floor. They just don't have bad play in general. Like they always reach a certain level, and they've somehow found a way to make all these players work in the mix. Like there aren't really sore spots on it. Look, I still think the Peach guy's a complete fraud, but fair enough. If you never lose, like, I have to fucking give it up eventually. Like they're working around it, they're making something happen. So I can't. I'm not going to give them. I'm not going to give them an A plus, but I'll give them a solid B plus. They just keep passing the grade and doing above average. So well played. You got top 3, better than I thought.
Yeah, top 3 is way better. But when you watch the XL team, like think about previous teams that were elite. Think about like when there was that like G2 Fnatic splice era where everyone you could tell like those teams were playing a different macro game to the bottom teams, where they would have, you know, things in their mind that other teams wouldn't have. So even if they were like behind in games, you could tell they could still win. It feels like XL, number one, they haven't had to play a best of 5, so I feel like teams could be able to adapt to them. But it seems like XL, they have good drafts for the players that they have. So they're well coached in terms of like they're drafting things that make sense for the team. They have like stable lanes, like no one's making too many mistakes, and normally they're outscaling in games. So if the game is messy and it goes late, normally they have some type of advantage. That's pretty much it. Like that is pretty much how I see XL. But I still don't believe they're a top 3 team. Even though they placed top 3, like, do I think this team is going to be going to Worlds? Because top 3 would go to Worlds, right? Auto qualify. I can't see XL going to Worlds. Like, how doomed is Europe if XL goes to fucking World? Can you imagine XL playing versus like Billy or some shit? What the fuck would happen? Like, how horrible would this be? Like, it can't happen. It's like how I was thinking about Golden Guardians before. I mean, I guess they did take a game off BLG, so I could be surprised. I just don't believe in the team. Like I would love to see a good version of Fnatic, a good version of Mad Lions, BDS, G2. Like that's what I want to see out of Europe right now. I don't really trust these other teams. Like SKXL, they're playing better right now. I don't trust them. I don't know. I can't bring myself to trust them. I watch the games and, you know, it's like 30 minutes in and I see Peach just like getting caught right next to Baron. It's like, how this happens every fucking game. Like how can you just get caught next to Baron late in the game, every fucking game, and be a good team? Like it just doesn't register for me. I can't, it doesn't compute.
Now here's the thing. I'm like Dom in the sense that like I'm committed to hating. It's a way of life. It's not just something that happens when you're annoyed. It's not just something that happens when, you know, like you get an angle. You have to even know how to hate on people, even when they win. Like Dom's done it before T1. It's actually the real elite cream of the crop hating is they win a match and you find a way to critique them and say downplay what they did. So you ready? Get ready, because I've been one of the all-time great IWDominate haters, right? So get ready for this. Is going to be some like prime level, like top shelf 10 out of 10 hating on someone who just won a series, had like sort of a throwback split, and now people are going to consider he must be one of the better mid laners. So you ready? This is actually courtesy. The idea for this came from Key-Ray, the Scottish guy on my Discord, who people might have seen comes on Rich's Wrath show sometimes, right? He pointed this out to me.
Who ran it down all of season 11.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
This is the angle for you, right? All of the success of IWDominate comes when it's only studio games, when there's no crowd. When he won with 100 Thieves, it wasn't like a big in the stadium and that. When he was on the Miracle Run with Schalke, that was during the certain year where we were all just in studios and at home. And then now, remember, in group stage, you don't go to a big arena. You're just in the LEC studio again. So basically, remember the original thing about IWDominate was, he gets a bit nervous under pressure. You never have to see him play under pressure. All his best performances come with no pressure. So you ready, Dom? Here's my nickname for IWDominate. The Studio Gangster.
Okay.
If you know the hip hop reference, that's straight fire. Basically,
Yeah, I get. No one's gonna understand that. I get it. I get it though.
If you're a kid, a studio gangster in rap is the guy where it's the guy where in all of his verses, you know, he's in the streets, he's fucking dumping Glocks, running the block, he's gonna fuck your bitch, he sells drugs, you know, he did a fucking bid, but in real life, that's a part he plays. Yeah, he wasn't really maybe from the projects. He had no criminal record. He actually, the joke is often probably went to like fucking music school or something, you know, and they were just some nerdy like Urkel motherfucker, and then they just came in like, right, time to put the persona on, like I grip the 9 and now's my time. Like, you know, fucking that's Abadage. The problem with Abadage is it's Abe Faker. It's like, yeah, maybe Faker now with his hand all fucked up, you idiot. Like he's just mid. Here's the thing. His position tells you what Abadage is. He's just mid.
Yeah, he didn't have like a super impressive games. He didn't have crazy games. The thing that triggers me about Excel is like they also skirmish so poorly most of the time. Like it's very hard. Like it's hard watching them play 2v2s, and I mean, if you know anything about me and what I like in League of Legends and like my style of teams that I enjoy, it's like the opposite of OMG. You know, it's like they have good drafts like of champions, and they're just like gonna sit back and then like hopefully win a fight around 30 minutes and then win the game. Whereas like OMG is like the fucking skirmish team. If there's like a 2v3 but they're up mythic items, like OMG's winning that shit every single time. So when I watch Excel, there's so many moments in the games where I just don't like the team. So for example, here's a fight to look at where you'll see what I'm talking about. If you go to game 1 of XL versus SK, this is the one where you have Certus on the Tristana, Abadage's on his Jace, you have a Sejuani from Peach, and it's early mythic completions for XL. XL has everything they want, right? They have early mythic completions. They get into a situation with the support moving where Odo dies, but Abadage TP'd behind and Peach is there as well. And they're double mythic items to no mythic items, which is like massive power spike in League. And you watch the way they execute this 2v2 where like Peach Q flashes and then he like holds his ult because he doesn't want to like stack the CC, and then he just throws it and whiffs it at the same time. Like Abadage is poking, but he doesn't know if they like should commit all the way or if they should just kind of like try to chunk them and see how the fight turns out. That's like right there. That is what I hate about League. Like they should, if their mindset should be like, we have mythic items, we are so much stronger, and we're just gonna like one shot one of them. QR from Sejuani, flash on top, just one shot one of them, and then you could scrap it out afterwards. The support gets there late. Who the fuck cares? The support joins, and then your mythic items, you don't have like ult cooldowns, but you're playing versus Tristana and a support when you have Eclipse on Jace and a Radiant Virtue on Sejuani. And you just watch the way they play it. It's so fucking ugly. And it's like, you could tell that in the moment, they don't realize how strong they are in relation to the enemies. They're kind of like, oh, well, like support is moving, so I don't know if we can fight it. Like, I hate that type of mindset. You should just be able to recognize from playing like even solo queue, we are strong as fuck. They're on our screen. We're just going to fight it. Like, it doesn't matter 2v3, 2v4, whatever. Like, it doesn't matter what the numbers are. We can one-shot people because we are so fucking strong item-wise. And they don't take any of those flips. They're the team that wants like, we want a 5v5. Oh, we need to have like TP advantage in order to make this bot play. Like, they just abide by all the rules of League of Legends, but they don't ever try to break them. And that really triggers me as a player.
If you want to see why neither the XL nor SK impresses me, go and watch game 3 from about halfway onwards with all these fights that happen, right? Bro, just pause the screen when the second the fight starts, right? I challenge anyone to tell me who would, if you don't know the result, to tell me who wins each of these fights. Like, I don't think the teams know it. And these were some of the messiest team fights you ever see, mate. Like, it was like everyone flipping a coin. It was terrible. It was really bad League of Legends.
It's even deeper than that because like, so I watch a ton of League, and after you watch enough League, you'll know which locations champions want to fight in. And it's like XL and SK don't even consider that. Like, they'll like be like, oh, we have TP advantage, and then they'll just like force a 4v5 where the enemy team is in like full tight back position, and it's like there's no way for the colleagues to get on backline, no way for them to dive, there's no flank, and they'll just fight it anyway because it's the right thing to do, right? It's like, oh, we have a man advantage, we'll try to fight. I really just hate the way that these teams set up the map. I just can't accept that they're good. I don't know. I can't accept that XL is actually a good team. It just won't happen to me.
Later on, we'll do the LEC is terrible rant. The Best Damn League Show period is brought to you by Esports Bet. Now, you've probably heard their classic first-time deposit bonus of 50% match up to 100 USDT. But how about their match of the week first-time bonus, where if you use our referral link to sign up and then you bet on the match of the week this week, which is going to be KT Roaster against Gen.G, the two best teams in the LCK, battling off in the big marquee matchup, possibly to decide first place, then you can get 10% extra on your winnings up to 100 USDT or in alternative and equivalent cryptocurrencies. Now, for this one, I personally think KT Rolls is the one to go with. They have enormous odds. And also, this could synergize potentially with the first-time bet bonus, right? Where you make the first-time bet, and if you lose, you go to the Discord, message the mod mill, and they give you it back up to 100 USDT. So what you could do is make the bet here. If you win, you get an extra 10% on top, up to 100 USDT or equivalent currencies. And then, if you lose, you go and get the original stake back, and you can bet some more, right? Check out esportsbet.io for more details. Right, let's do this then. Let's talk about the BDS Heretics series, Dom, which, interestingly, if people don't know, was last week's bet of the week. BDS did indeed beat Heretics. And the angle I'm going to go with on BDS is like this. I'm actually going to give some compliments and then backdoor into some flame, classic Thorin style. So here's the way it's going to go. You know what? I have no complaints at all about Nuke. Played well. I actually did not know. You know what? I'll do the Shaq meme. Like, I apologize, sir. I wasn't familiar with your game. I actually didn't know you could play just like that, mate. I thought you were just the mage bomb. You actually did impress me in these games. These were some good games. I'd not expecting that to come out whatsoever. Then I'll say this, right? I think the actual sleeper of the series, because he was so whack in the regular split, was obviously Shio. Shio actually looked like he was back on his game, mate. Now, you'd never know this from the broadcast, Dom, because this is why narratives... I'll tell you what I hate. As someone who's worked a lot on analyst desks, and narratives are my whole thing in history. What I hate about LEC is they like to connect to past narratives, even if it's inappropriate. It's like they want to build it like an HBO series. They want to build a narrative slowly, drip feed through the seasons that always connects. So one thing they do is, because they made Adam a superstar when he was on Fnatic, and made it sound like he wasn't just like an inexperienced player who had like very limited job. They made it sound like he was the next wonder, the next stud top laner. They still do. Dude, in this series, they were bigging up fucking Adam. And I'll tell you one person in this series I am not bigging up is fucking Adam, like you say. Monty's whole take on Adam, I love it. He's combined all the haterism, but with a classic like Monty level-headed take. His take is this. Adam is actually really good for this team with Crown Shot, because he is just like permanently making it so that like, yeah, the jungler's just going to go top. But the joke is, Adam doesn't know he's doing that. He thinks he's just like, lol, I'm winning, 1v1, look at this solo kill. Meanwhile, for Crownie, it's like, you're the fucking flak grenade to keep the fucking heat-seeking missile away from me, mate. Just keep that shit away from me. So the joke is like, I don't even think Adam knows what he's doing in these games. I do think he's very well he's put in the right team and he's coached around properly. Mate, how are they going to give Adam the credit for this win? What are you doing, bruh? What are you doing? And he's playing against, by the way, not just the worst, probably the worst top laner to ever play for a fucking team in the LEC. It's got to be up there. Like, every guy's just a permanent int.
Yeah. So one thing that everyone was saying in the call I was in was that Adam is just really good at shitting on people that are worse than him. That's like his superpower. Is like, if you take a player who's just like bad mechanically, like he's I mean, if you watch the way he plays, he's like a fucking bulldog, right? And you put him in a situation where he's laning versus Evie, and you could just tell based on like how Evie like plays the game, he's like, all right, guys, I hope I don't int this one again. And then he just fucking walks in and just fucking runs it down in the lane. And you know, you see Yankos like on the camera, just like you can see the pain, just like for some reason his fucking whole camera is like grayscale every single time that Evie dies. It's just one of those things where you just know Evie is going to int at some point, and Adam is good at abusing players like that. He just knows like, oh, this motherfucker doesn't have it, like he didn't come to play. Adam's a player where you need to be willing to withstand that and abuse your knowledge gap over the player. Like, the way you're going to get leads on Adam is, okay, you have like a really good TP timing, you set up the wave super well. Like, you don't want to just get into perma trades when he's playing his champion. So, you know, Renekton is also one of Adam's champions. So I think that once again, like, you're seeing the issues with Heretics. They did get nerfed. Like when we saw versus BDS, they did get nerfed by the patch, just like we all said they would. And then on top of that, they obviously have the worst top laner in the league. Maybe one of the worst top laners in the history of LEC, who's actually played a full year for reasons that we still don't know.
Anyone else would be benched. Let's be real. Anyone else would be benched long ago before this, mate.
I don't know what the fuck is going on. I don't know what they're seeing. I'm not seeing what they're seeing. That's for sure, though.
By the way, I'm just going to say this right now. Anytime I ever just glance in the Twitch chat, it's absolute trash tier. You guys are the heavy of subscribers. Like, it's people who are subscribers who talk the most shit. So here's the thing. Show us, audience, that it's not just all idiots out there. I want some people who actually have some cool, interesting takes or like what we talk about. Throw some Twitch primes our way. Represent yourselves. Show that it's not just morons just going, I will hate watch Dom and Thorin. My entire life. You guys are getting annoyed by one guy. They say, spending their whole life and obsessed with and annoyed by one guy. Like, fucking hell, boys. There's never any self-awareness, is there? Like, you're basically the guys who have like a fucking snouty pig nose, big hunchback. And then you're going like, you're mid and disgusting. It's like, no, mate, look at a fucking mirror. That isn't a funhouse mirror. That's a real mirror. It's just normal scale, like normal proportion. You were born like that. Fucking go ring the bells. You just fuck off, mate. So anyway, let's bring it all back. Because I've got to say this. This is the BDS I wanted to see, though, mate. Like, this is the BDS that gives me so hope they actually can go in the playoffs. And by the way, now there's teams like XL that, dude, maybe they can do some work. Maybe they can actually get like third in this split. It's doable for me.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? It could be one of those situations where you have, because there is no cross where the groups play each other, you could just have the like three best teams in Group A.
Yes.
I think that's plausible because BDS, I mean, they look like they are just on a different level than XL and SK. I don't know. BDS is the second best team. I'm not sure what's happening with Matt and Fnatic, but when I watch BDS play, you can tell that there's more like thought in their setups. Like, they're actually able to play a back and forth series with G2, and they're able to gain some advantages. And G2 is playing on a higher level than everyone else, so that gives me some hope. I mean, BDS is looking like they could actually make a run.
And my sources, people within the LEC, tell me that one of the reasons they think, like, they're not saying this to downplay Crownie as an individual player. They're actually saying it to big him up as like a team, like almost like leader figure. They say that Crownie is a guy who constantly will communicate when he plays ADC like this. He'll constantly tell you everything he needs, the ganks he needs, if he can group, should we take the tower, should we back up? And so essentially they told me, like, he shot calls around himself loads, that he does a really good job of that. I could believe it, mate. It looks like it in this team.
Yeah, he's definitely a player that wants to like be vocal, and he tells you how the game should play out, which I think is really useful, especially for teams that don't have direction. Like, if he's not doing that and he's not setting up the plans for the game, who else is going to do that in this team? If you look at how Nuck plays, if you look at how Adam plays, you think that those are the laners that are going to be like able to direct the game from like minute 1 to minute 30. How are we going to take our lane lead and win a game of League of Legends with it? It seems like they're there to like do their jobs, like win their lanes, and then like everything else is being set up for them. Like Crownie deserves a lot of credit within this team. Like, I don't think that other ADs are joining this team and having even close to the same level of results.
Right, okay. Let's just have a few thoughts on Heretics, though, because the thing is, I mean, I've been saying it the whole time, I did expect them to get a bit exposed in the groups. Like, I think there's even a world, by the way, where Koi might beat them, and we're going to talk about Koi in a minute. They're not a fucking good team, but I think there's even a world where Koi can take care of these guys. Like, there are some bright spots. Jankos is still Jankos. Vethio has some good games here and there. Flackhead's aight. He's still just aight. There's nothing wrong with him. But
yeah, he's LEC level. He's what he's playing. How people perceive him now is how they should have perceived him last year. Like,
agreed.
Now he's just playing at the level that you expect. He's a LEC tier AD carry. He's not super great. He's not super bad. He's like a 5th, 6th best AD in the league. He's solid. He's pretty good.
But in general, though, where are you going for Heretics here? Because look, I will say it, being as I do think the heavy guy is terrible, they essentially are playing 4v5 sometimes, and he is feeding the enemy. But even so, like, they're just not, they're not capable of much. I can't see this. I don't think this team can make playoffs. I just don't think there's a world for me.
I mean, yeah, they would have to beat BDS to make playoffs. Maybe they could make playoffs, but it's only because it's best of 3. You know, like, they could get there through best of 3s. And best of 3s, I don't necessarily know if I believe too much in best of 3s being a like elimination type deal, because, you know, sometimes you're able to just like get 2 easy wins. I mean, I don't know, like you could get better drafts in one game and then just have like one game where you outplay them. Boom, you're suddenly in over a team that's better than you. I just think that BDS looked like, once BDS figured out what to do game 1, and now when everyone's prepping against Heretics, they're never going to give video Kais anymore, so they're not going to get those free easy wins. They're not going to give them LeBlanc. So what is the angle that Heretics can come up with where they're able to win games? Because it feels like they need like a hyper carry in their games, and
there's only one position can do it. Yeah,
only one position could do it. I think the champions that Flockhead would be able to potentially do it with are amplified by things like Yuumi. So for example, Zeri Yuumi, I think was something that Flockhead's pretty good at. He's pretty good at carrying games through that. That's no longer an option. and I don't trust their bot lane laning to be able to get their bot lane in position. So it needs to be like a Yanko's masterclass coupled with an outdraft for them to win. It's hard to do that. I mean, they have to do that 4 times in the next week in order to qualify. I'm just not sure if it's possible.
Yes, and spoiler, I don't think he's going to be playing those hyper carries if he's already on Seraphine duty, Dom. That's just a little fucking, just speculating, you know. I don't know anything about their scrims, but holy moly, if that's what's coming out. I don't even know what the fuck's going on there, boys. That's where it's like, Peter Dunn, maybe you're cooking a bit too much, mate. Maybe just order takeout this time. You know what I mean? Just go and check what, here's the thing. Check if there's a good Chinese restaurant near you and just do one of their drafts, you idiots. Check the menu out. You don't always have to be fucking, hobble and bobble, toil and trouble, that wing, and think, I've got a Seraphine, Nautilus, brother. You don't need that, mate. You don't need, listen, that's too creative. You know what I mean? That's just too out there for me. So what about this then? Let's do the series that I saved.
It works if you have a top laner, to be honest. I think it could work if they had a top laner, but they just don't.
Good one. Yeah, if they had a good one. Here's the thing. I saved it till last because, mate, look, no diss to G2, but man alive, I thought this G2 Koi series was a fucking abomination, mate. Essentially, if you didn't watch the games, guys, Koi gets early leads in every game. They even get kills onto Larson. But, mate, I thought Broken Blade, he's actually normally, even though he is actually like a good personality on stream, he's not usually like a really good trash talker. His tweet was funny as fuck. The one where he just tweeted like, you know, I apologize. I apologize to Malrang for whatever I did to him. Because in this game, it really did look like Malrang was like, you know what? Fuck my career. I'm just going balls deep on this motherfucker every time. It's like, why? Like there was one scenario, people remember what I'm talking about in Top Lane, I think it was game 2 or something, where they actually have like an insane lead because of this like counterplay they do. And then Malrang just decides that, you know what, I'm just going to feed a kill back. You can just have one back. Like, bro, this was one of the all-time lows for fucking Malrang this series, mate. Like, I mean, Koi in general has problems, but fucking hell, this was bad. This guy, I'm sorry, I'm just going to say it like everyone. It's one thing to criticize. I think he can't be on this team anymore. You cannot have this player on this team anymore. It's just gone to shit completely now.
I think the thing that gets me the most is like, it's the combination of gameplay and then also the builds. Like, you see,
they're criminal, aren't they?
It's super criminal. I mean, especially in the game number 2 where he's playing with a LeBlanc, right? So normally when you play AP Maokai, when you're playing the full AP Maokai, that's generally played specifically when you're going like a full AD team. So you're getting a lot of value out of the Maokai there. He's playing this in a game with a LeBlanc. He's playing like the Demonic Embrace first. He's playing into a Trundle. So, I mean, he's going to take Phase Rush. And the only reason he's doing it is because he thinks like, oh, bro, I can't build tanky because if I build tanky, then I'm just giving the stats over to the Trundle. But you watch the games and it's like, please, bro, like you are an AP Maokai. You have to at least play like you're an AP Maokai. He's like frontlining with the AP Maokai, just like forcing the fight like directly. I don't know, man. It was really, really, really tough to watch. There was also the Sivir angle, which I absolutely hated. Like, Kalista has been a counterpick to Sivir since the game's been like invented. Like, since Kalista came into the game, it's just been good into Sivir. How the fuck did we end up in a situation where that is now the counterpick to the Kalista? Like, Kalista's not even meta, and we're like, what could possibly counter this? And they look and they're like looking for like the worst champions in the game. They're like, yeah, that one. They select the fucking Sivir. I can't even imagine how they got to this conclusion that this would be the answer. Hans Sama Kalista, hit him with the Sivir. He's not known for Kalista or anything. It's not like his whole career has been Kalista and Draven. So it's tough, man. It's really tough. Koi, well, I guess we'll see. They were playing against G2. I don't know if they will lose to Heretics because I also think Heretics
if they had an early game like that against the other teams, they could probably win some of these games. Let's be real. Yeah, I could see that. I'm with you on the Malrang item builds, though. Like, bro, these are the 3 players who just permanently lose to the shopkeeper. It's Evie, it's Beryl a couple of splits ago, and it's fucking Malrang. These guys, it's not even that they build the wrong items. They just don't build items. They just take components. Like, the joke is, you know, when I said Peter Dunn's cooking too much, they're not cooking enough. They're just like this. Oh, you know what? I'd love to have a lasagna, Don. So here's a block of cheese, just some fucking pasta that hasn't been cooked yet, and some tomatoes. Like, oh, this is horrible. Oh, why are you Italians eating like this? Like, fucking cook it all together, you cretin. Because when you combine the items, it becomes more than the sum of its parts. It becomes a delicious fucking meal at that point in time. Y'all are just fucking, this is poverty. You're not even fucking peeling the potatoes. You're just eating them raw. Like, I don't know why people like mashed potatoes. Like, just fucking, it's outrageous how bad these guys are.
I mean, the Evie thing like would make sense.
It's Boris Gap with these guys.
It would make sense if he actually stayed in his lane. But the problem is that Evie just starts like he builds components, right? And the components, the thing about components is they're good in lane, right? So like you can buy a random Executioner's Calling if it's really good for the matchup, or like a random Bramble Vest if the enemy team has like a lot of healing, or you can buy like an armor item in lane if you're playing versus somebody who can abuse you. Sometimes you'll see teams or players pull out a random Warden's Mail versus auto attacker. The problem is that Evie builds items for late and then he just like perma roams with them. And it's like, dude, then you have no money, so you can't ever complete anything. The Ornn game where he had 130 CS at 26 minutes and he had no mythic item completed. I'm like, dude,
that's insane.
I've never seen an Ornn
that's amazing.
Hit level 13 where your mythic item upgrades and he didn't even have a mythic item to upgrade. I didn't even know that could happen. I just thought everyone had mythic items by level 13. I can't believe that he had no items completed in that game somehow. They have 3 inhibs down and you look at his build and he has not one item completed.
Bro, imagine if Malrang and Evie played on the same team. Should even theoretically be possible. They're both in LEC. That's some night. Man, that would be like the mid lane nightmare simulator. Like,
I mean, we pretty much saw we saw Ruby and Evie. I think that's close enough. Like, I could pretty much picture how this works. So,
exactly. Yeah, basically, people don't know Ruby and Evie was some fucking Sophie's Choice shit. Except the joke, like I said about Fly last week, is you're like, is there an option for both to die? Oh, sorry, I had to pick one.
Did you hear the Jack Spectra story about?
Yeah, I saw the clip from your stream. It's amazing, isn't it? Where basically, if you don't know, Jack Spectra told Ruby, like when he was playing Tristana, right? Was it Tristana?
Yeah, Ruby clip. Yeah.
Ruby had never played Tristana. Didn't know who was playing. Just told him, like, look, whatever you do, just don't build Kraken Slayer. So he just built it like, the collector. He just collected pretty much item.
Yeah, pretty much what it was this was at the time where you would get IE second because it was like you only needed 40% crit to get the IE second. So he said, Ruby, no matter what, build Kraken into IE, right? So in the game, like Ruby's like, yeah, sure. Yeah, I'll build Kraken into IE. Okay, like you're the AD carry, like you play a lot of Tristana, you know the build. I'll just do exactly what you say. So he goes in the game, he goes Kraken Slayer, and then second item, Jack is like, wait, what is that? What is that in your inventory? And it's just a serrated Dirk in his inventory. And Jack is like, wait, like I thought we were going, like I just told you, we both agreed before you were just going Kraken Slayer into IE. Why do you have a serrated Dirk? Game ends, Ruby builds a collector, like they just like lose the game. And he asks him, Ruby, why on earth did you end up building this collector? We talked before the game. We said Kraken Slayer into IE. It's really OP on this patch. And he says, yeah, I just don't play Tristana. That was his fucking answer to the situation. It's just so perfect, man.
In came the Heretics boss is like, fire Jack Spectra. You know what I mean? Like, can't get a break. By the way, I'll just say that now. Look, overall, Flackhead's a solid player, but I do just look at that last lineup and I'm like, could Jack Spectra just have one more split? Like, what did he do to deserve this shit? Like, he was even a guy, by the way, who was actually trying to carry the game. Like, bro, I don't get that one myself. I get they probably did it for like, Flackhead's fucking personality. I get there's all that like team balance shit and personality balance and all that crap, but I thought Jack Spectra was fine, mate. I thought he was fucking done dirty in the LEC personally.
Yeah, I mean, I think that him and Flockett are extremely comparable players. I think that they're just like this. They're pretty much the same guy. I think that there's some times where you might want Flockett more, but I think that the weird thing is this, right? From watching last year, I thought Flockett was really good to have on a team if you're not playing towards bot side. Like, if you want to play weak side bot lane, like he's got the Ziggs, he's got the Seraphine. I think Jack is a player that wants to be more of a strong side player. You want to put resources into him. He wants to be like the player that's going to take a hyper carry and just shit on the bot lane. But in this team, I don't see why you'd want the weaker side player, because shouldn't you want to play through bot? I mean, your other option is playing through fucking Evie most of the time. Right now, I guess the way Heretics plays is they just prioritize being around mid, like let Video do his own thing. But I don't think it would look that much different if Jack was playing instead of Flockett. I think the team would still probably be in this losers bracket. They would still be like fighting to get 7th or 8th or some shit. And Evie would still be running it down. I think Video would still be good. So I don't know. It's pretty weird. It's weird to me that Evie somehow made it further than Jack Spectra. Like, I just can't put that through my fucking head. Evie has been so bad. Like, there was times where Jack didn't look great. There was times where he looked good, but Evie was bad consistently. And this guy, I don't know, he's just fucking immune to benching. Then he comes up and he's like, oh, look, I did the thumbs up. Like, dude, you can tell even when you look at his expression, he like barely just wants to do the thumbs up anymore. Like, now when he does it, like, you can see like the fucking pain, like going through his like going over his face. So
exactly,
it's tough.
Here's the thing, Tom. If I wanted to see a fucking bot do a thumbs up while dying, I'll just boot up Terminator 2, classic film.
True.
Straight fire. Sadly, all you Zoomers don't. You're like, Terminator? What? Like Terminator 4? Whatever. Like, shut your fucking mouth. There only were 2 Terminators. The rest, I think you should sue them for copyright infringement. Whoever made those was a fraud. So, okay. Right. Here's the topic. Let's just do the Koi bashing then. Like, mate, I can go all over. I've already done the Malrang. I can go all day long on this one, mate. Like, fucking hell. Like, even Larson had one moment I thought was criminal in this series. You know, when he did the Tristana jump in and he landed like right next to like Broken Blade, like fucking melee, I think like Jax or something ridiculous. Like, I'd have to remember what the meta was. Like, I heard basically he was trying to do that thing where it's like you do like the R while you're in midair or something. He just didn't get it cleanly off or whatever. But like, it looked so bad. Because if you saw these fights, right, look, I'll give props to G2. They're probably the best team at re-engaging and winning the fight in that way. But mate, the start of these fights are even all looking like they're going to go to Koi. They're looking awesome. I will say they do get baited like a motherfucker by something I hate in modern league, which is, you know, when champions have existed for so long, people like associate with them how they used to be, but they're not like that now. Every time, even the casters do this, every time you get a Kennen ult, they act like it's killed all 4 people inside the ult. Like, it just does the initial shit, you idiot. Like, you have to actually follow up to kill them all. If you just land like if Shigenna just landed the ult, then it was like, oh my god, fucking shit. And then you never win the fight. Like, that fight's just lost after that because this team's just not good. Like, they just couldn't team fight properly. I thought if they'd played a little bit more, like, essentially the joke is Larson didn't play Beatty in that fight. If he'd have played a little bit back and kited, he probably could have fucking got kills. Like, I thought even the leads they had, they just tossed straight in the bin. And yes, they were playing the best team, you're right. That's the team that can punish it. But you also were just giving them layups here.
It's tough. Team fights are something that require, like, the thing about this in the modern day is everyone actually has to play the team fight well. Whereas before, you would have like 2-3 guys where their tools, like, it was very simple to play. But now there's like a push and pull. If you watch top teams around the world, you'll have one guy go in and you have to be very cognizant of which ability cooldowns in the fight are down. Like, not just like flashes and ults and like those things, but just like actual like one ability. Like, is Braum shield down? Like, these things matter so fucking much in the modern day of League. And they just don't have all 5 players on the same page. Like, Shigenna will play the fight well, but then you'll have Advian not play it well. You know, Larson has to play fights differently. I've never been a huge fan of Larson on like 80 carry mids. I know he played Lucian and he was pretty good at it. I just feel like right now with how the game is, I just don't feel like he should be a Tristana player.
Think about it.
He doesn't need to be a Tristana player.
Azay, bro, all your champions are there. You don't need to go to this. Like, just because it's meta, you don't have to go to it. You aren't caps.
Yeah, I mean, he even played some Nico and it looked all right. I just think that he doesn't have that like 80 carry mindset. He wants to be able to use spells more than just get off a million autos in a team fight.
Yep.
So they just don't have the complete team. And then also the problem with Koi is on a smaller scale, what happened to Fnatic, I think that they're just much better when they're playing like the Enchanter styles. I know Advian is supposed to be good at Engage. I think at this point, it's actually the opposite, where you need to hide this guy. I don't think he's good enough at Engage to make the Engages count. And it's almost better to have him on like the Yuumi. I mean, we even saw during the split, he was playing Janna and shit. So I just think that this team, the meta hurts them, and then also their like adaptations to what the other team is doing, they were just fucking terrible. Like we talked about the Sivir into Kalista. Can't be the answer. I don't care what the answer is. Maybe it's Ashe, maybe it's some other champion. It cannot be Sivir into Kalista. I refuse to believe that that's a thing. So yeah, they just like, and then when you get into team fights, I mean, it's just G2, right? G2 is just so much better than everyone else in team fights. Nothing to really say about it. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they beat Heretics, though. I could see them beating Heretics because I think Heretics is easier to figure out than Koi. Like Koi, they're just not that good, but they kind of play everything. I think Heretics, you look at that team and you're like, all right, ban Kai'Sa, ban LeBlanc, make sure that Vetio can't abuse a static shift champion, and you are playing a completely different game than when he's on it.
It's basically the real irony is obviously Heretics was Misfits, and like what we said last year, you just cynically draft against them. Don't try to actually play the game. Just cynically draft out their champions, and they are in twice as bad scenario in terms of winning the game. I agree with you. So I think Koi cheeky takes that one, right? Obviously, G2 did just pretty much smurf on BDS. Like, this was like a caps pop off. He did look good on some of these games. He was having some nice games. Like, obvious topic, because we'll lead into this in a minute. We'll do the Fnatic mad one too. Don't worry. Is G2's just far and away the best team. It's like, it's actually laughable at this point.
And they have their own take on the meta. I think they're really far ahead when it comes to the Braum. Something that like I didn't even realize until recently was how OP Braum Emax is. They changed the E midway through this season, where now not only, so I'll just tell you people what it does. So when you max E on Braum, the damage reduction goes up to 55% and the shield duration goes up to 4 seconds. So and the cooldown, so the shield duration goes up to 4 seconds and the cooldown of the ability goes down to 8 seconds. So that means that there's a 4-second window where the shield's up and a 4-second window when the shield's off in a team fight, which is mega fucking long. And then you combine that with 55% damage reduction. 55% damage reduction is fucking absurd, right? That means that if he has 2,000 health in a team fight, it's the equivalent of him having like 4.2k or 4.3k health. Like that is a mega tank. So yeah, for a support, like your support is literally just somehow the tankiest champion in the entire game. He's tankier than like a fucking Orin or some shit in these team fights, and he's blocking abilities and you can't get past him. Whereas like Orin, you can like shoot your abilities at somebody else, like you can auto attack somebody behind him. So this is actually really fucking broken, and they picked up on that early. So now they have the depth. They were playing front to back team comps. They were playing Kog'Maw Braum. Now teams always have to consider the Braum. And now they play all the other champions in the meta right now that are really strong. Ivern, Rel, Nico, they can play everything. So I like the way that G2 is playing the game. I feel like they actually were the only team that was confident enough in their ability to make it through the season part of the format where they use that time to improve. They were willing to play things that were not good. It was almost like a scrim where, you know, maybe Kog'Maw Braum isn't optimal, but it will teach us a different play style. We're really good at engaging and playing that aggressive style. Now we're swapping it up. We're playing front to back. We're giving them a different look. And it looks like they got better from that. Like the team has improved because now they have more depth to their gameplay. They're no longer the team that's like, all right, we're going to shit on you in lane. We're going to group up, snowball 3 Drakes, and just like shit down your throat. They no longer have to do that. So yeah, I mean, I think the team just looks better for it. They have everything in their arsenal and they play everything that's in the meta.
Oh, I actually thought the point that Reckless made on the LEC broadcast was a good one. He said essentially he thought G2 didn't even have to show anything this split. It's kind of true. They almost like sandbagged the split while still being the best. And you even saw it in this BDS series. Dude, they would just have Cap split pushing and win 4v5. Like the game's just on easy mode for them right now. And some of their players are just peaking like a motherfucker. Like Broken Blade's having a good split. Caps is getting better and better. Mickey X is still an absolute stud. And Sama's just high quality. Like what not to like about the team?
Yeah, I think that this is one of those teams. Like now when you look at it, I mean, BB just looks like he's the best top laner in LEC. Like no one else looks like they're up there with him. And when you combine like the way that everyone's playing, it just makes so much sense. Also, I think that teams kind of got mind gamed by the fact that Mickey X was playing so much Braum, where they're like, isn't that a good thing for us? I mean, when you compare how it must feel to play against something like Mickey X on Rel and Mickey X on Nautilus, when he's just like flashing on you, like running the whole fucking game, you're almost happy that he's on something that's limited in a sense. But then you play against them enough and you're like, wait, this champion is just fucking broken. So it gets you a different way. So now they can play the Engage, they can play the Nautilus, they can play the Rel. They play Kalista, which is also really good for Mickey X, because if you could look at how Mickey X plays, what is his main flaw is going super deep in a team fight, just like inting, getting caught, for free. Now you have a champion that allows him to play like that, and he can also, get out of the fight when that happens. Yeah, he can get saved.
Yes.
They've got levels to their gameplay. I mean, if G2 doesn't win this split, I don't know what to say. They look like by far the best team. I mean, look at who they're playing. It's G2 versus XL in the upper bracket finals. That's one of the best of 5s. G2 versus XL, like you can't tell me that XL is the second best team in LEC. Like I refuse to. I don't believe they're top 3. How could I believe they're top 2? I think they'll Rio XL. I think it'll be almost like a joke. I can't believe that they are actually playing a team like XL. Like the only way they lose is just hubris, I think. So I don't know. Looks like a free win for G2. I think that this is even better than Winter. I think that the difference between them and the next best team is fucking massive. Like I don't even know who the next best team is. I thought it was Fnatic. I look at them now. It's like, who's the next best team? Maybe BDS? Who knows?
Well, obviously the last series we haven't yet discussed is there's now a loser. This is familiar. This is one thing that is familiar from the Reckless series. There's a losers match in a group between Fnatic and Mad Lions. Hey, I think I've seen this one before. Like, give me a fucking break. Now, here's the reason this is actually a very, very relevant match that people don't know. Because now the wrong team's won for Vitality. If XL wins one series at all, goes above 3rd, then Vitality's not in. And then they need Fnatic not to get playoffs, I think. Playoffs are top 3. Top 3, there you go. So basically, they need Mad Lions to beat Fnatic for them. And then they need, say, BDS, G2, whoever else to come through and take care of XL. So it's not impossible still if you're Vitality, but it's definitely a little bit more squeaky bum time, as they say in CSGO. So what about this Fnatic Mad Lions game? Because as I said, that's the game of the week. And the reason why I'm loving those odds of like 2.4 for Mad is like, dude, without Fnatic played, I think this is a coin flip, this series. I could see either team winning this one.
Yeah, I mean, it's a coin flip. I will say one of the advantages for Fnatic is I believe that their AD carry will be able to auto the Nexus. So if they get in that situation again,
okay,
I trust in Noah to be able to right-click the Nexus. So it's a little bit more favored to Fnatic than I thought the other one was. But overall, I'm not sure. It seems like I want to see what Fnatic shows up like, because obviously they had the bad scrims that everyone talked about. Now they've had the bad stage performance. Do they bounce back, or is it just like complete mental collapse? What's going to happen with the team? Because when I look at that team, they do look emotional. You look at Razork, you can just tell the vibes of the team whenever you look at him. Humanoid's not the guy who's going to like carry the team out of like a bad time in terms of like upping morale. You know, the joke that everyone always says is, whenever you ask, like, when you're like, oh, Merrick, like, how do we win this game? And then he'll be like, yeah, it's doomed. Yeah, we lost. Like, that's just how he talks. So who's going to be the guy on that team that's going to be able to get the team up, like, mentally, like get them back to that level? Because you have two new players, bot side, two players that are new to the team. Tribby doesn't really strike me as like the man motivator type. I mean, you've heard about times in Rogue where the team also would get like super depressed and no one was carrying them out of that. And then Oscarinen is like a 19-year-old rookie. So who's going to be the person on the team that's going to change the mentality? Because right now it looks like they're spiraling.
Also, just a random shot. Oscarinen does look like a Lego man. There you go. Just throw that out there. Look it up. Then here's the other thing. I've heard from people who were teammates and coaches of Humanoid Dom. It's way worse than people realize. Like, they say he is, I don't know if people know this word, but I want to expand everyone's vocabulary, so I'll use it. Inscrutable is the word. What it means is you can't read the guy. You can't tell, like, what you don't see from emotion on his face, like his expression. What is he? Essentially, the real problem is this, Dom. No one actually knows if he cares or what he's thinking or what he's about. Like, so he's just such a mystery to people, even that have been around him. It's like, listen, that is, again, I'll tie it into what I said before. That is great if you're mysterious, but you're just a stud and you just cracked in the game and you just win all the time. If you're actually just throwing games in bad, it looks like you just give up and check out sometimes. That's really, really bad. Because then they don't, like, one thing you want to know at a minimum about someone who loses or does something bad is like, right, at least he cares though. At least he does understand he did something wrong. At least he knows that, you know, it's got to improve. No one gets this vibe. No one knows what to make of this guy, apparently. Some people, like, for real, this is my sources tell me, they just speculate that he's a guy that was ruined by getting the giant contract from Fnatic and that he is just sort of like, lol, and he's just getting God, like, more money than God for the country he comes from, basically. So who gives a fuck is the vibe, which is like, and like, I get it, that's cool for you, but that's so whack for like a career, you know, mate. Like, come on, have some pride in your career.
I mean, he's somebody who was on like the trajectory where people were like, he's the next Caps.
Yeah,
right? Like, that was the thing. He was supposed to be the next Caps, which is what, I mean, obviously it's something that happens with every single player that plays mid lane and has some amount of success. It was the same thing with Vedio. That's just what people do. But I mean, the trajectory was looking really fucking good. I mean, at that point, when you think about 2021, it felt like Caps was just going to be the best mid laner forever. It's like, yeah, he'll just be the best until he retires. It'll be the year 2045 and Caps will still be just completely untouchable. That's how it felt. And he was able to actually come in and be like the lane king. He was the guy you didn't want to go into lane with Victor, Orianna, Azir. Like, he would just smurf on you, go into side lane. He used to have this problem where he would die all the time in side lane. He moved that out of his gameplay. I don't know. I thought it was going to go a lot better, but it's weird to see the way he's playing these games. I just want to see him play with some agency. Like, just do something, man. Like, just get a champion that you're comfortable on. If you don't want to play Azir, don't play fucking Azir. Play something else. Like, there's other champions that I feel like should fit the way Humanoid wants to play lane, like Jace, Tristana.
Yeah, why
something
not?
Like LeBlanc. Why are we banning LeBlanc when we have Humanoid? He was one of the best LeBlancs before. He was the first guy to play it. He was one of the first people that realized that it was OP. My speculation is it's one of those things where you play something when it's mega broken, and then when it gets nerfed, it just doesn't feel the same as it did when it was so broken that you end up just being like, yeah, I don't think it's good anymore. You know, like, it's just like instead of comparing it to the other champions in the game or like how strong it is in the game now, you just think about how much better it was before, and you compare it to that, and you're like, it can't be good because like the other one was so much better.
Yes. Right, let's do it
That's
at
my
the end. I have a little rant for you, Dom. So I watched your video where you were talking about how bad LEC is, right? And one thing I did like is that you didn't just do the thing that everyone else does, which is, I think it's whack to me. It's just a format. It's like, no, I'll tell you actually just narratively why it makes perfect sense that LEC is really bad, guys. So follow me on this one, right? Here's how the orgs managed their rosters in the off-season for last year. So Koi had an elite roster and downgraded/fucked the whole team chemistry up. Fnatic downgraded bot lane, which was one of their best positions. Mad Lions got better, but it's just mega inconsistent because of the nature of the players they have and the fact that coaching staff even tell you they don't go hard in the season part of the split. XL fucked up the super team while taking a bunch of talents and locking them together for the first two splits. Misfits became Heretics, who was shit for most of the year, and in the first split had Ruby and Ebby in the first two splits. The Vitality super team failed. Guys, that's like the majority of the league I just read off there. So imagine this world. Imagine a world where Koi made no roster moves. Fnatic kept the same lineup. Mad Lions got a bit better like they are now, but they're just one of a bunch of teams. XL maybe only got, say, Yankos, who was available. They kept the same team otherwise. Vitality super team actually worked out, and Team Heretics just kept the Misfits lineup with maybe put an ERL player instead of like the jungler or something. Dude, this would be a stacked split. This would be a fucking bonkers split. And only, by the way, one of those did I make ridiculous with the Vitality Super Team work. Aside from that, the others were all plausible for the GM. Like, the real problem is this is one of the worst GM years I've seen of LEC, mate. I actually think these teams are trash. It's why when you were talking about the top lane discussion, top lane goes like this. For real, it goes like this, guys. It goes Broken Blade here, then we go down, it's like, I guess irrelevant, and then it's like, fuck. You know what, Chasey?
Like
I think you are actually overrated. Yeah, you and Oscarinin probably can fight for third, mate. Like, top lane is fucking dire. And then you look at jungle, bruh, even Elyoya played like actual shit in that fucking series. Like, there's basically who in jungle? Yankos and fucking Yike. Is that it? Is that it for jungle? Maybe the odd Marcoon game. Like, bro, the top two positions of the map are just fucking bonkers how bad they are in LEC right now. Like, I can tell you right now, if the form of these teams is what goes to Worlds, forget even who goes. Aside from G2, everyone is going to get murked. It's going to be worse than MSI if it goes like this.
Yep. It's got to be one of those things where you just remove the rest of the teams from Europe and you only judge Europe based on how good G2 does. Like, if G2 makes it out of groups, it's like, yeah, we made it out of groups. It's like, we made it out of groups. It's the same shit that people did when G2 was actually like one of the best teams in the world. They're like, yeah, look, Europe is better than Korea now. It's like, okay, man, like, I'm down to go there. You know, I'm down to hate on KR. Let's get G2 to make it to like semifinals or some shit, get knocked out by a Chinese team, and we could just pretend that Europe is still like a top 2 region in the world.
But anyway, obviously that's a bit of a bummer. But good news is there is obviously going to be the playoffs and the lower bracket games coming up. Because if you remember, they do that weird thing where the upper bracket final is played the day after they play out the groups. So there's that whole shit, which, spoiler, we don't have to go into that one. G2 will destroy them. But obviously after that, then we eventually, after the split, we get the championship things. Also, we'll be keeping a track of, can Vitality still make it based on XL and what Fnatic does, because they're the two teams that are challenging them. And obviously, like XL, I don't think they can do it because it's best of 5, but the Fnatic one's there. It's not impossible Fnatic could get third. It's like they have to turn the game around, but it's not impossible. I'm hoping Mad Lions and BDS just help us out there, and we at least get the cheeky sweat of like, what would Vitality have done in the last split? Maybe they have a couple of games they can go off with. So obviously we will return next week to talk about all of that.